Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
Hello, our wonderful listeners. Welcome to another episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. This is our civilized podcast where we represent both sides of the ideological spectrum. And so we have Josh and Ryan Cragen raised together, but both turned out completely different. It was crazy to see this wild transformation. Actually, they were both originally conservatives, and then one took a hard left. But so we tonight we're going to have a little bit different format. We're going to be talking about something that just keeps coming up in our podcast, and we're going to try and ferret it out. First, a word from our sponsor, Lux Bidets. We're all here fans of bidets. Josh, Ryan, and I we all bidet lovers. We like to spray things down rather than when I spill dirt on my driveway, I don't go take a rag and try and wipe it all off the driveway. I like to spray it down with with water. So,
okay. I have a question, just because it's going to bug the crap out of my wife. Do you ever, when you turn on the bidet, do you ever leave it on just a little extra long just because it feels good?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure I'm not the only one.
Yeah. It's like taking a shower, right?
Yeah.
I take really long showers because it feels good. Exactly. And sometimes I take cold showers because that feels good. Sometimes I take hot showers.
Are either of yours heated? I've never had a heated
Josh's.
one.
Yeah. I actually installed an outlet. They were doing some work on my bathroom, and I was like, hey, can you install an outlet by my toilet just in case I decide to do that? I live in Florida. It doesn't get hot. It doesn't get cold often enough for me to really feel like I need it, but yeah, I could if I need to.
So even in Utah, I've had just cold before, and it was still, it's not as good, but you get used to it. But the warm one, happy fun poopy time, baby.
All right. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Josh, I'll just let you kind of intro this one in, and we'll go from there.
So I've dubbed this format Truth and Reconciliation, which it's for most of my friends will actually know that's a ship in the Halo games. But I love the idea there. With the podcast, the last two episodes, we've reached a tipping point. We really have. We've stumbled across a very real disconnect. Okay, in America, we have two sides. When we first started this podcast, we identified that it appears like there are almost two truths in America, and this has been vexing to all three of us. We've been trying to get to the heart of this, and the whole point of the podcast is to reunite the United States, to bridge this divide, to identify these disconnects. And I think largely inadvertently, we stumbled into one. I was getting really pissed off at things Ryan was saying, then he was getting pissed off in return. And then as soon as I realized, we are onto a disconnect here, I wasn't even mad anymore. I just want to really hammer down on what's going on. And just to give a brief overview, if you didn't listen to the last two podcasts, a very brief overview. Twice now, I felt like Ryan was calling me a racist, and Ryan didn't see that. He didn't feel like he was calling me a racist, and I was getting pretty mad about that, and he didn't know why I was getting mad. Then he got frustrated. Okay, is that a fair summation? Everybody on board so far?
Good enough. We'll come back to stuff, I'm sure, but that's fine. Yeah.
So the whole goal here is for this format, we're leaving emotion at the door. Okay, because we all agree we're seeing something important here, and we need to get to the bottom of this. Because if we don't, maybe the podcast dies. Okay, that's on the table. So we're leaving emotion at the door. We're leaving our past 40 years of baggage at the door, right? And we're just going to have a cerebral discussion about what may be going on here to see if we can actually identify the disconnect. That's the goal for this podcast and for this format. We've stumbled across something important. Let's figure out what it is, and I'm going to say I'm not going to get butthurt. Anything Ryan says tonight, A motion is left at the door. Okay. That's the goal. So I have a place where I think I'd like to start unless anybody wants to add anything.
Go for it, because I have no idea where we're starting. I mean,
okay. And
you
this is
can
just going to
mention
be
that I wrote a really long email after that last one trying to unpack this. Hopefully some of that stuff will come up, but we'll see.
It actually will.
We're not doing our standard format tonight. This is just we're kind of just winging it. So we'll see how this goes.
And a lot of this is going to be thinking out loud. Okay. We're going to have a discussion. I'm not completely sure where I want this to go. I have some ideas. We're just going to have a discussion, and hopefully we all learn from this. Okay, so something that we've said several times, Tom keeps saying this, we're all a little racist, right? And I've agreed to that. Ryan's agreed to that. I've agreed to that because I do agree with the idea of what Tom's saying there. In my mind, it's too simplistic to just say we're all a little racist. I don't actually like that because we're not even connecting with what the word racist means. That's part of the disconnect, I believe. So let me just delve into this to see if we can find common ground here. I will agree that we all have things floating around in our subconscious that affect the way we see the world, what we say, what we do. We all have biases. We all have something there. We're all products of our experiences, okay? And I think to just say we're all racist is far too simplistic, and it's probably not even accurate in a lot of ways. Okay. Some of my triggers, because we all have triggers, right? We agree with this so far. My worst trigger, if you say this, I immediately judge you, is socialist. If somebody introduces themselves and say, I'm a socialist, I immediately go, oh, I immediately write them off. Go, you're an idiot. I don't like you. You're stupid. Because in my mind, I don't know how I don't understand.
You've associated so much with that.
It's just title. Such a dumb. You in an enlightened day and age to call yourself an enlightened person and say you're a socialist, you're an idiot. You don't understand history. 200 million people died in the name of socialism and communism in the last century. It's a trigger for me. And whether that's right or wrong is beside the point. If somebody says I'm a socialist, I just go, oh, I write you off immediately. Okay. That's probably not smart.
And where I think you're going with this is that racist is one of these charged words.
Well, let me get to that. For some people it is. For some people it's not. Okay. One of my other triggers is if somebody says I'm a Democrat. Immediately I start to judge them. It's not as bad as socialist. Socialist, I just write you off as being a lost cause. Okay. It's probably not good. That's what I'm saying. This is one of the things floating in my subconscious. Another one is if you say I'm a Democrat, then I'm going, well, okay. I'm not completely writing you off because some of my favorite people are Democrats. Some of my best friends are. Ryan is, and I love Ryan dearly. But it's something gets triggered in my brain, right? Slightly behind if you say you're a Democrat is if you say I'm a Republican. Okay. It does the same thing to me. If you say, well, I vote Republican, okay, that's cool. You've given this some thought. But if you say, yeah, I'm a proud Republican, something triggers in my brain. I go, you didn't really think about this, did you? Okay. Now this is a little more caustic. And I'll try to be a little careful with this. One of my other triggers is Muslims. Okay, so let me explain this. I lived in Spain for 2 years. And for that entire 2 years, it was the most bifurcated experience with Islam that you can imagine. About half of the Muslims that I ran into were the nicest freaking people on the planet, literally tried to give me clothes off their back multiple times. Okay, tried to feed me food. Nicest people ever. And then the other half I ran into, I was spit on several times. They threw rocks at me. I was there. I was in Vigo, Spain for 9/11. Okay. Walked out of our apartment. We had no idea anything had happened because we were missionaries. We don't have radios. We don't have TVs. Within 2 minutes, a Muslim lady with a hijab, I think that's what they're called, right?
Hijab, yeah.
She ran up to us and said, I'm so sorry. Is your family okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? I'm so sorry my people did this. And we were like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, there was an attack. We're like, what the crap? So we started to head to a member's house to find out what happened. And within 50 feet of her, saying, being so nice, a group of Muslim teenagers ran up to us and started to taunt us and to say, I hope your family was in the towers. I hope they're all dead. Death to America. Like, what the crap? And that's actually pretty normal. And that was my entire, for the next several weeks, it was the same bifurcated experience with Islam, right? Of people throwing rocks at us and taunting us. And several times people said, I hope your family were in the towers. I mean, that's just so messed up, right? And then other Muslims saying, is there anything I can do to help you? It's a weird bifurcated experience. So I have a lot of emotional baggage tied to Islam. Whether that's good or not, that's another story. That's one of my triggers. It's something that I'm emotionally invested in because of my experiences. Okay. Is with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So the last week I've been thinking, do I have any emotional experiences with Black people? Do I have any triggers there? I can't think of any. I've only ever had good experiences with Black people. Only good. I've never had like a real negative experience with any Black person ever. So to just say we're all racist, I have zero problem with Black people. And I can give you a couple of stories that are really funny.
And I'm guessing your experiences with Black people are limited.
Sure. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
let me tell you this funny story, unless anybody wants to jump in. I feel like I'm doing all the talking, which is not the point tonight.
You are.
This is where I wanted to get us started.
I'm just trying to figure out where we're going. So keep going. That's fine.
I do have a point to where I'm trying to get. But
well,
if you guys want to jump in.
Let me ask you, because I'm like, of all the titles that would get thrown around these days, I think, in my opinion, you guys tell me what you think. I think like racist is one, it's totally overused. Everyone's calling everybody a racist, but I think it's, and I think they're doing it because racist is the worst title you could give somebody. It's the worst pejorative that you could charge somebody with. In my opinion, in this modern day, like I hear fascist thrown around, and like first off, most people don't even know what a fascist is, right?
Right.
They're like, you're a fascist. You're like, okay, But racist it's very charged word, and nobody, and everyone's like, oh no, I'm not a racist. I just beat these Black people, right? And you're like, okay, well, it's like,
I might put pedophile above racist, just to be honest.
Right? I
like,
would,
but you don't. But people don't throw pedophile around, right? He's
No.
a pedophile, right? Unless it's actually like they're associated with that, right?
Yeah.
But
Though
people
there was
throw racist
one,
around all the time.
trying to remember. Funny side story. There was a comedian who was on a bus with his sister, and he used to tease his sister like horrifically, right? As she's getting off the bus, she says very loud, and there are a whole bunch of people around. She's like, good luck with that pedophile charge. And she gets off the bus, right? Which I just think is absolutely, I mean, it's awful. Like, you can't say anything worse than that, but it's absolutely hilarious because she was just messing with him, right? So,
funny.
of course, everybody on the bus immediately just like scoots away from the guy. They're like, oh my gosh, he's a pedophile, right? Anyway, so I would say pedophile is probably worse than racist. Okay. But after that, you're probably right. It's bad.
Well, this is what I want to get into, why I think it's thrown around so much. And this is where, Brian, we're all going to take emotion out of this tonight, because I'm going to make an attack.
I don't know why
it's not at you.
To me, but okay.
Well, it's because you and I are the ones that get emotional, and Tom's sitting in the background going, these idiots, how do I get them to shut up, right?
Man.
Well, here's my assertion, and this is what I want to discuss, and maybe I'm completely off base, but I don't think I am. The liberal framework is built on this postmodernist notion of a power struggle. Okay, that it's people in power and the oppressors and the oppressed, the victims. And then so I bring up the word intersectional a lot. It's all these different victim groups that liberals identify. Don't be shaking your head.
It's because you don't use the word correctly. You don't use postmodernist correctly either. So they really do aggravate me when you're like intersectionality, and I'm like, that's not anything close to what that means.
You don't get to get aggravated. No,
I'm not.
Get aggravated tonight. But go ahead and explain, because this is a discussion. What is postmodernist to you, and then we'll get into what I'm trying to say here.
So postmodernism is basically. It's a theoretical approach to deconstructing power dynamics sometimes, right? But it's not exclusively
what I said.
But it is really like a very highbrow theoretical approach to basically say that there is no truth, right? That at the end of the day,
That's an aspect of it, but it's power dynamics.
It's not exclusively power dynamics. It's really deconstructing reality, right? But I'm saying it's deconstructing reality to say, your perspective is your reality. My perspective is my reality, and neither of those supersedes the other, which is ultimately to say there is no reality. We can't ultimately agree on what is reality because
you're focusing on a different aspect of postmodernism.
But do you understand? Like that is the actual like theoretical framework of postmodernism. That's where it comes from. It comes out of this really egg-headed stuff, right? That
this is not important. We're getting sidetracked here.
So
I'm saying that this is where the liberal framework comes from. They draw on this power struggle dynamic that is outlined in postmodernism, and then it's. I mean, you don't have to agree with it. That's fine, but. The intersexual framework. If you're a victim, then all of a sudden you're assigned virtue. And the more victimized you are, the more virtuous you are, which is a bizarre way of looking at it, but that really is what happens. You know, that's how you explain away the Juicy Smollett rise, because there's a bunch of these people that keep, you know, they feel like if they can prove that they're a victim, even if they've made it up, then they get acclaim and money and virtue.
Rise, you mean that by being attacked, he got a lot of sympathy and publicity and attention, I guess.
Yeah.
That's your kind of thinking. Okay.
So a big part of the framework is racism, because that's one of the big victim classes. Okay. So if this is, you know, I could frame it this way, the liberal platform. Okay. And I've said this before, the proper place for the liberal is to fight for the dispossessed, right? That's their proper place. If you take away racism and bigotry and just say all of that's gone, then what are the liberals doing? What's their platform, right? They don't have much of a platform left. So my overall assertion here is Ryan's framework for, you know, what I'm seeing, and I'm sorry that this is so hard to explain. This is pretty crazy stuff, and this is not my field, obviously. If I'm less racist than Ryan, suddenly his liberal framework falls apart. Does that make sense? If there's no racism, the liberal framework falls apart. If
there's not an oppressor, then there's no oppressee.
Exactly. And then this intersectional thing where the left is really worried about this power struggle. If there is no power struggle, then it falls apart. So if there isn't a bunch of racists out there, Ryan said in the BYU podcast, there's a lot of racism out there. Well, I don't see that. I really don't see that. There's some racism out there, but the left profits if there is a lot of racism out there, or if they can see that there's racism out there, or prove that there's racism out there. There's just not that much racism out there. That was the whole BYU kerfuffle, right? This one girl. So again, let's not be emotional about this. If she pulled a Juicy Smollett and she decided she wanted to be a victim and said that somebody's calling me the N-word here. If she can prove that, then she gets all this sympathy and attention, and her godmother, I think it was, has a history of doing this race baiting stuff to be a victim. And then the media jumps on this and says, yeah, look at all these racists out there. Well, there's not actually any proof of that. So why would they be so keen on promoting all this racism when there's not really any racism there? Do you see what I'm saying? This is part of the liberal framework. If there's racism, then they actually have a fight to fight. If there's no racism, they have no case.
Your point is that it's in liberals' self-interest to find racism, even possibly to find the most racism there is, even if it's possibly not there, which is exactly what you're saying with like Juicy, what is his real name?
Smollett.
Is it Smollett?
Jesse.
Yeah.
Smollett.
Jesse
Something.
Smollett, yeah.
Jesse Smollett.
It's Juicy.
I don't know what it is.
Jussie.
It's not Juicy.
It is. It's Jussie. That's his name. Juicy Smollett.
All
But is that
right.
how you say it?
I don't think that's how
I
you
think
say it.
so.
I think that's what Dave Chappelle
Maybe
made fun of him.
Jussie.
It's kind
But that's his
Jesse,
name.
but I don't know.
Anyway,
His
but
name's
yeah,
not
but you're
Jesse.
saying that's how he was like, and that was an example of him creating racism when there really wasn't any.
Okay. And
Right.
yeah, essentially that's what I'm saying. But it's not just that there has to be racism. Racism has to exist. It's the self-image of how liberals see themselves as champions of the oppressor, or of the oppressed. Sorry,
The oppressor.
of the oppressor. That's an interesting.
That would be
idea.
the Republican platform. Kidding, Josh. Kidding.
No, but you see what I'm saying. That is the proper place of the left, and that's good. Everybody should like that.
Not
But
sure
if
I buy it, Josh. To be
well,
honest.
okay, I'm going to give you some
Ryan,
examples.
Ryan, is the U.S. a racist? We have been racist. Are we a racist
There's
country?
no question about us being racist, right? I mean, we had slavery from our inception
Yeah,
up to the
we were.
1860s.
Are we a racist country?
And then
right
Jim
now?
Crow for the subsequent 100+ years, and now we just lock them up in prison. And that's true, Josh. I mean, that's demonstrably true. Like, you can't say that that's not true. That's just factual, right?
That is such an oversimplification to drive home this idea that there's rampant racism. It's a gross oversimplification.
Slavery is not a gross oversimplification.
Okay, so
let's start there, right? So we clearly have a history.
The U.S. has a racist past for sure.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
So
but it kind of is, okay, because that assertion right there, and I'm not disagreeing that there was racism. Obviously, there was slavery, but
okay.
but what you just said.
Thank you.
Okay, but
let's
what you
agree
just said,
on that. We had slaves, right, and they were black people. So
sure.
that's discrimination. That's racism. Good.
Sure. And
we can agree on that. Yes.
Yeah, I wrote 3 whole novels about how slavery is hell. Okay, it's bad.
Okay,
I agree.
It's bad.
But what the left tends to do is to just say, America it's the most racist country ever, and they don't actually look at the facts.
I didn't say that.
Okay,
you realize I didn't say that.
Then I won't even go there.
Tom asked if we're a racist country, and I said clearly we have a history of racism. We had slavery up until the 1860s.
So talk about right now.
Then we switched to Jim Crow laws, which disenfranchised black people. Okay. And that was rampant, not everywhere in the country, but in many places, particularly in the South where I live, Jim Crow laws, which continued all the way up until the 1950s. Okay. Even into the 1960s. Then after that, we actually have on record conservatives after the Civil Rights Act is passed. Okay. We have conservatives saying, you know what? We can't legally discriminate against them, but we do have this amendment, right? The 18th Amendment that says slavery is outlawed unless somebody is lawfully incarcerated. So if they're lawfully incarcerated, they can be treated as slaves. That's in the amendment, right? So you don't have to pay them. You can force them to do labor. That's part of what happens. And they say, well, here's the way to disenfranchise black people now that we can't use Jim Crow laws, is to put them in prison. And there is a very extensive history, and you can still see it today, right? Black individuals in the US make up 13 to 15% of the US population, but what percentage of our prison population do they make up?
30.
It's higher than that. It's almost 50%. It's like just under 50%. It's like 40 to 50%. They are disproportionately arrested and prosecuted. Okay. And effectively, that turns them into a slave labor force. You can pay them either nothing or a minimal amount, and that continues. It is now normative in the US, still today, normative for black men to serve time in prison, meaning more than 50% do. Okay. So, and I get, we could have a whole separate episode about whether that's intentional, if this is just straight up discrimination. If you wanted to debate that, we can. What I'm saying is we have a long history of racism. Okay. I don't think we can debate that. Like, we shouldn't be, that shouldn't even be a question, right? It shouldn't be a question. Slavery was bad. Jim Crow was bad.
Never disagreed with
What have we, good. And I think we all agree on that, right? The question is, what happens after the Civil Rights Act is passed? Are we continuing to discriminate against black people? If you want to have that conversation, we can. I don't think that's the topic of the podcast today.
That's not. It's really not.
So let's punt that, and then let's talk about the real issues here.
And you're saying it still is.
Well, but again, let's punt that, right? Josh is asking a different question, which is the platform of progressives? And I do want to draw that distinction, right?
Well, because Josh's argument is that like the liberals need to find racism, and I just want to get your take. Like, is America racist?
Well, let me restate the argument just a little bit. I started this talking about my own trigger. Socialists trigger me, right? It's a subconscious thing. There's subconscious biases that I have. My assertion is that for liberals and for Ryan, that one of his subconscious biases that he probably doesn't even see or is aware of because he's on the liberal spectrum is to, one, I have to be more racist than he is. Otherwise, his moral high ground, he talked about in this letter, because both sides do argue for the moral high ground.
Yes, we do.
If I'm less racist than Ryan, his moral high ground crumbles. Does that make sense?
But if we're gonna unpack the moral high ground, I think
people.
Yes, good, Tom. I like the humor. If we're gonna unpack the moral high ground, I think we have to unpack what I was trying to make, the point I was trying to make in that email, right? So I don't think it can just be the one-way thing.
No, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
Okay, so I don't think we can do that, and I have to just make this point because it's you're trying to make an argument that the liberal platform is somehow fashioned around inequality. And I think what you need to do is stop referring to that as the liberal platform and refer to that as a progressive platform.
Oh, that's fair.
The liberal platform is a liberal economic system, right?
Sure.
Not progressive politics. And it does actually drive me nuts every time you guys describe me as a liberal, because I'm really not. I'm a progressive. Okay. The progressive platform is effectively radical equality, right? That's the progressive platform, is no one should have more rights than anybody else. Okay. That's the radical progressive platform. The liberal platform is really just economic. It's saying we should have a liberal economic system with some restraints. Okay. So if we want to draw that distinction, and the reason I mentioned that is because you kept saying like the whole platform for liberals is inequality.
Okay, we got it.
Not remotely true.
I agreed.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Progressive.
Sorry, I mislabeled you. You're progressive.
Okay. And this is part of what we're doing.
And you're not extreme progressive. You're like a moderate progressive or something.
Yeah. So because there are lots of ways that you can think about equality and inequality, right? Lots of ways. And one of the easiest ones that I actually talk about in my classes, because I want my students to wrestle with this, is I think a lot of people would say, I think we would like people to start equal where they start. Okay. But you don't have to mandate that people are equal where they end. Okay. So the idea would be like, let's make sure that all the elementary schools are equal quality, right? So everybody has the same opportunity to start, but pretty quickly, my students very quickly will be like, wait, so you're okay. Like, and they all agree, like, yeah, that's good. We want everybody to have the same opportunity, but then what if somebody works harder, right? And so you can't then go to the far side and say, okay, but all the outcomes have to be equal too. No one can make any more than anybody else. And that's immediately where all of my students are like, what? And that's the radical progressive agenda, is like, actually, the end is equal too. Nobody gets to make more than anybody else. And I don't actually agree with that position, right? I don't
Some
agree
people on the left do.
Some people do, but I think that's a teeny tiny minority. I don't think that's the platform of Democrats.
Well,
I mean, you can see that. I mean, Joe Biden is not arguing for this. He's not like, let's take everybody's money away and we'll just level the playing field for everybody permanently. So there's equality in outcomes.
That tiny minority they make it on the TV a lot, for sure.
Yes, they do.
Well, so do QAnon and Donald Trump's advocates, right?
Very
yes.
True.
Okay, so
usually as
clarifying the platform, right? So if we're going to go with the platform, I think that makes sense. But let's clarify.
You could have simplified that by saying we actually pretty well everybody agrees with equality of opportunity. Only psychos believe that it should be equality of outcome. Okay, and there are people that do, and that's equity.
Call them psychos, Josh.
I am, because
you could call them
doesn't work.
I'm not going to call them psychos.
I'm actually going to call them socialists, right? That's what socialists do. They want everybody to be equality of outcome, and they actually can achieve it. We are all just poor and miserable and slaves together. That's what socialism does. Okay. Anyway,
not slaves, but poor and miserable. I'll give.
Good distinction.
Yes. You're a socialist, right, Ryan?
I
He used to
have
be.
socialist tendencies, and that's still true
If he was-
today.
Sure.
But
But he's not a socialist.
we talked
'cause
about
he
this. We
sees-
talked about this, that capitalism and socialism are a spectrum.
Yeah.
And so Josh is clearly further on the capitalism side. I'm further on the socialism
Yeah.
side, but I'm not to the radical socialism where, as Josh's point is, everybody has equality of outcomes.
Yeah,
right?
I'm curious. I did when I, like, would you identify with the term? That's what I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like, how far are
he
you?
used to, and that was part of the reason we stopped talking, because I just can't talk to a socialist.
I hate socialists so bad.
I
Even
do.
though
I'll never
I
speak
really
to
Josh-
you
do.
again.
Even though Josh takes advantage of socialism on a daily basis.
But that
you
no,
don't have to mention that.
It's-
What do you mean?
that's just-
no, your kids go to a
Uh,
socialist school.
that's a social program. It's not socialism. How many times do I need to tell you this?
Socialism.
Okay. All right. Rouge, I
Let's
think
get back to the real point.
Yes.
We're off
Okay.
the key here.
I'm gonna give you some examples of what
But
you said.
did we agree that the platform?
Yeah, I
argument that
agreed
you
the
were
whole
making
time. You've been
doesn't
saying
really
for
make
5
sense?
minutes.
Okay,
Well, no.
so
Just if
you
change
saying
one
that that's
term.
the whole platform,
progressive.
I don't think makes sense.
Well,
That's not the whole
You
platform.
don't have to agree with that. That's fine. But what I'm trying to point out here is I think that there's a subconscious bias in your head when this stuff comes up, where you have to paint me as you think you're racist. This is a liberal thing because you're white, so you're racist to X degree. I have to at the very least be racist to X plus 1, or it doesn't work. And we can give some examples of this, because you've done this 3 times. You did it in your email, and you did it in the last 2 podcasts, where you said, and I don't think it was even conscious, that I was more racist than you. Let me see if I can find one of these. Well, let's read
Okay,
your.
Hold on.
This is from your email. This is from your email.
Right.
This is really good. Let's
Well,
read this. I'm going to read your
can we
email.
do the whole morality thing first? Right. So you're
I'm
saying
going to read your email. You
different-
talk about it in your email.
about the claiming of moral high ground?
Yeah.
Okay, read
Let
the
me
whole
just read
thing on
this.
claiming moral high ground. I'm fine with
This
that.
is several paragraphs. I'm going to read
It is
this. Ryan
long.
sent this email trying to explain what he thinks the disconnect is. So this is like a big chunk from the middle. We need to separate someone's perspectives on race from their self-worth and their morality, and frame their perspectives on race as just that, one aspect of their overall worldview that does not equate with whether they are a good or bad person. We also have to frame this not as an either or, black or white. So in parentheses,
Doesn't
black
work
or
in this
white doesn't work
context.
in this situation issue. It's not. Racial perspectives have to be considered along a spectrum or scale. For instance,
pause. So you're saying you can be a racist and be a good person. That's what you're saying.
Yes, as
Kind
long as
of.
we understand that racism doesn't equate I am a member of the KKK and I want to kill black people, right? So it's racist in the sense that Tom is saying, and so we're kind of skipping the idea that I'm saying, okay, let's just, if we think
we're
about
going to get
race,
to it.
okay,
Don't
but
say it. Let me
Tom's-
just read it.
fine, you can read
Okay,
it.
keep
Tom
going.
asked for clarification.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm
okay.
trying to clarify.
It's going to be clarified in the email
Okay,
here.
let's
All
try.
right.
For instance, let's say that the bastards who shot Ahmaud Arbery hold the belief that it is okay to confront a black person jogging through a predominantly white neighborhood with guns in order to provoke that person into a violent confrontation so they can shoot him. Note that this is about their beliefs or values or perspectives regarding race. It does not say anything about their views on family or country or religion or anything else. They have a belief regarding what is acceptable to do with a black jogger. We can take that belief and put it on a 10-point scale that ranges from 1 as minimally racist as possible to 10. Wow, that is so racist. Where would we rate their belief? I'd put it at a 10. That's Ryan speaking. Does this mean these people are morally reprehensible in all aspects of their lives? No. It means they hold a belief that is very racist, but just that belief is. It is not a commentary on anything else about them. Okay, so this is going into Tom's question here. Ryan has created this scale, 1 to 10. Everybody's on it, apparently. Does it note that the scale doesn't range from 0 to 10. It starts at 1 under the assumption that everyone is racist in the sense that Tommy has described. That's why I started with this. I don't actually agree with that. I think it is possible
To be a
Not-
0.
So again, part of the disconnect is with the word racist. When you say you're racist in this country, what you're actually saying now in 2022 is you don't like black people, or you make distinctions about black people. For some reason, we don't care about Indians or Asian people or Latino or white people. It's just that. Okay. And if I say that, if I make that accusation, you're a racist, It's just black people. So there's something weird going on with the term itself. It's been hijacked, and we can go into that in a little bit if you'd like. So that's why I don't actually agree with Ryan saying there's no zero on the scale. Well, what do you mean by saying racist? Is it just do you make hierarchical distinctions based on skin color? Is that what it means now?
I don't think
nobody
that's
knows what it means now. That's part of the disconnect.
But that's fine. Why can't we work on a definition that we can agree on here instead of just saying we can't, right? Like,
I didn't say that.
Racist out. No one's a racist because we don't know what the term is.
I didn't say
right?
that.
Like,
I'm saying
that's what it sounds like you were saying.
No.
But at the very least, well, you're saying, so like Ryan's saying, yeah, there's a gradient, right? And it's like, you're a racist level 5, right?
Yes.
You're a racist level 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think we have to do that.
To some degree, everyone's
but
a
I don't.
racist, at least
this is the
1.
disconnect.
But Josh, you're even saying it should be like subclass B or subclass A, meaning like you don't like Asians, but you like blacks or whatever.
No.
You could rate it on different scales, but it sounds like Josh is rejecting the whole idea entirely that there's no gradient. It's either you're racist or you're not. And I'm not getting it, Josh. Clarify, because I'm not following.
Well, I'm trying to, but you guys just both like went crazy random directions here. Like,
just
what is he saying?
We're not following. Explain.
That's the whole point tonight. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that we're just throwing out the term racist. And I think we should circle back around to when I think the term got hijacked, because I think we'll have different interpretations of what racist actually means in this day and age. But I think you would both agree that largely, if you call somebody a racist, it's just black people. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying there? That's largely what's happened.
That's largely what happens. But during the pandemic, that language got hijacked because of the source of the pandemic. But do you see what I'm saying? During the pandemic. No. But during the pandemic, there was a lot of talk of racism towards Asian individuals.
Oh, or China. Yeah. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So you can still use that language. Yeah, so there were a lot of attacks towards Asian people under the assumption that somehow they brought it over, right? Even though they're like Asian American, they've been here their entire life, right? But do you see? So they literally connected it, right? So there were a lot of attacks,
and that's a good example of how the term kind of gets hijacked to mean different things when it shouldn't. It should just be. I mean, we should probably look up the Webster's dictionary. Well, should we sidetrack and talk about this for a minute? I think it's important. I think it's part of the disconnect.
Talk about what?
We're still trying to understand what you're saying, Josh.
Okay, fine. Let me finish this first. Back to your email. How does this apply to our discussion? Josh noted that the racially diverse cast led him to seeing problems with the series like continuity issues, B, and woke preachiness, C, that suggests the producers are more focused on moral messaging than telling a good story, D, in other words, A led to B, C, and D. If we think about this as a causal chain, Josh's perception on racial diversity, A led to B, C, and D as a result, and I'm going to get back to this dumb causal chain stuff you came up with. It's impossible to argue that race had nothing to do with Josh's perception of the rings of power. It did have something to do with it, as it was the underlying cause of the main concerns. Now, this is the most important paragraph. Now, let's return to this 10-point racial attitude scale. First, we are evaluating just one aspect of Josh's overall beliefs, that a racially diverse cast is too woke. This has no bearing on whether Josh is a good dad, whether he's a good husband, whether he writes good books, or whether he is generally a good human being. It is an evaluation of one and only one perspective that Josh holds. Even if we scored this as a 10 on the racialized attitude scale, which it is not, it doesn't mean Josh is a member of the KKK who wants to lynch black people, because that is not what we are evaluating. But let's say that this attitude gets a 2.6 on the scale, completely arbitrary assignment, but bear with me here. Ryan then steps in and says that he didn't have those same issues. In other words, while Ryan saw that the cast was racially diverse, it didn't lead him to B, C, and D. Let's say that we can then conclude that Ryan's perspective on this issue gets a rating of 2.5 on the scale. Does this mean that Ryan is a better dad, better husband, writes better books, or is a better human being than Josh? No, it means that on this one issue, Ryan's perspective may be slightly less racialized by a tiny fraction. That's all it means. Okay. This is.
And you don't like that, do you?
It's so stupid.
You hate that. And I think this is actually getting to the core of the problem.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah. You hate this. Okay.
So one, I went through and listened to a couple of our podcasts, and I found 3 times in the last 2 podcasts where well, okay, one time in each podcast in here where Ryan intimated that I am more racist than he is. And he kind of does it here with the scale. I'm a 2.6. Ryan's a 2.5. Okay. I have to be, by definition, from Ryan's worldview, subconscious perspective, more racist than he is. That I think it could be playing into this. And Ryan's going to hate that. That's fine.
No. We're going to wrestle with this issue, Josh.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're being open-minded about this. So I have that problem with it. And here is, to Ryan, what Ryan just said, I think this is the main disconnect. I don't see myself as a racist. Okay, right. I just don't.
I agree. I agree that you don't see yourself as a racist.
Okay, and then in the podcast, I asked Ryan, am I racist? And he said, no, I don't think you're racist.
Right.
And then he says this.
Okay. Can I clarify it at this point?
Let me just make the point.
Are you close to being done? Because you've been talking a lot of the time.
You guys didn't have anything to talk about.
Oh, I do now.
Okay. All right. Tom, do you see what I'm making here? You'll be do you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well,
Ryan said you're not racist.
It's the same point that you've been bringing up, is that as long as you are further down, even if Ryan's on the chain, as long as you're further down the racist.
Well, not just that. Not just that.
Well, I think that is a big part of this, but that's okay.
The two separate points. Separate points. That's part of it. The other part is he tells me to my face, no, you're not a racist.
Right.
And then he keeps saying stuff like this. Well, okay. I mean, but you are racist.
Can I clarify, Josh?
Let me finish the thought. Tom doesn't know what I'm saying.
And
okay? So you say you're not a racist, and then you turn around and go, well, but you are racist.
Yep.
You're racist here. That doesn't make you a bad person, but you are a racist.
And would it be fair to bring up what Ryan's kind of identified, that it's like racist is this big blanket term, in that when Ryan's saying you're not a racist level 10, but he's saying, but you probably are a racist level 2, right? Is kind of what.
Fine. Well, I'll let Ryan address this. I think it's absolutely absurd to do this.
Okay. So let's wrestle with this, because I think this is actually really getting at the heart of the issue. Can somebody, and let me start with this question. Actually, let me start by summarizing your point so you know that I have actually understood what you're saying.
Lovely.
Okay?
Go for it.
So what you're saying is you don't see yourself as a racist. Okay. You just said that. You don't see yourself as a racist. You think that a core part of the progressive platform is that they have to have some moral high ground. And so they go out searching for people to be racist, and they lay these accusations at people of being racist, and that validates their position. And so they feel like they're morally superior. And this is the whole basis of the progressive platform. Okay. And then in this specific instance, what you're saying is I'm basically talking out of both sides of my mouth, that I'm saying you're not a racist, but then I intimate that you are a racist. Did I get it?
Pretty close. Some of those aren't completely connected like you just drew, but good enough for what we're doing here.
But I'm summarizing, like, this is your perspective. Okay. So let me start in a response by saying, can somebody be more racist than somebody else?
Sure.
Okay. Yes. So if we can just lay that as a foundation, that somebody can be more racist. It's my turn, Josh. Sorry. No, you had a lot of time here. Give me a second.
We're building the foundation. So I need to ask another foundational question.
What's your foundation?
Can somebody not be a racist? This is important.
In what sense? In the Tom sense that we all see race and race colors the way that we do things, potentially in completely subconscious ways. Because if that's the definition that we're using of racist, then I would say, yes, we're all racist. And no one cannot be racist.
So that's a 1. I mean, you need to define like what a 1 on the scale is.
A 1 would be somebody who, I mean, and I said this in my email, right? Somebody who literally spends their entire life like trying to minimize the harm that stems from racism. Okay, and they try and catch everything that they do consciously, subconsciously. They're 100% working towards minimizing racial inequality, both from their end and in other ways.
So let me point out this problem before you jump into it. If everybody is a racist, as you just asserted, and I agree with the idea. Okay, I agree with the idea. What's the point of having the term racist? If you call somebody a racist, it means nothing if everybody, by definition, is racist.
Agreed. If we keep using the term the way that we've been using it on this podcast, which is why you get so pissed off all the time.
Sure.
You get pissed off because when I say, well, maybe your attitude on this one particular issue is a little bit more racist than somebody else's attitude.
No, because that's not how you've been saying it.
Josh, hold on.
You haven't ever said that on the podcast.
I haven't
never said that. That's
the implication is, oh my gosh, you're accusing me of being a member of the KKK and I want to lynch black people. And that's the problem. That's the disconnect, is there is no continuum. If you're a racist, you want to kill black people. If you're not a racist, then apparently you're the best person on the planet.
Very black and white.
Yes.
And that's
you're
why
racist.
Pun intended. Pun intended.
I know, the pun is the problem, right? That's just like, you can't use black and white here. It's an either or, right?
Okay,
either you're the worst person on the planet, or you're not a bad person at all. And that is, I think, the major disconnect, is that we can't add any nuance to the conversation, because the nuance is really the key here. And that's all I'm saying. And let me give I think a very clear example of where people would disagree on racial ideas. And the left, this would be part of the left platform, actually, and I would concede this is like a progressive platform issue, is the idea of structural racism. Okay. So on the left, most people on the left would say, no, society is in fact structured to disadvantage black people. And a lot of people on the right would say, I disagree with the idea of social structure. I don't think social structure really exists, and I don't think there's structural racism. Okay. So that's a clear disconnect. A clear disconnect. Okay.
And we've had that disconnect.
And we could certainly debate that. And I think that's perfectly fine to debate that issue. On the left, they would say, if you reject structural racism, that makes your views more racist. Okay. It doesn't make you a member of the KKK. And this is the problem, is as soon as somebody says the racist word, it gets immediately equated with, I want to lynch black people. And that's not the intent. So we can't even have conversations, because as soon as you think I'm implying that you're a racist, then you immediately are like, wow, you think I am the worst person on the planet. And that's not what I'm trying to get at. And this is why I can say, Josh, you're not a racist. I don't think you're a racist in the sense that you're, wearing a pointy hat and burning crosses in black people's lawns.
You're not a level 10 racist.
You're not a level 10 racist, right? I'm a level 2 racist. You're a level 2 racist. If there's variation, it's really small. But if we can't have conversations about the really small differences in our opinions, then fuck it. The podcast is over.
We can't get to a level 1 racist.
Bingo. We can't. And that's what I'm saying.
No,
if we just keep going 10 or 0, then it's over. We're done.
I like the way you've pulled that out. And I think, and I agree with you. And that's why this is what I keep saying about, it's so charged, right? That word's so charged because it implies you're level 10. And that's what it's like. It's McCarthyism all over again, of like, oh my gosh, he's a racist, right? Fire him from his job and take away all his livelihood.
And if I'm going to be fair, I think, and this is me trying to be as fair as possible, I think many progressive individuals actually are perfectly okay doing what Josh intimated earlier, which is they like to level the accusation of racist. They don't care about the nuance. They just want to paint people with a broad brush and basically combine everybody who's more racist than they are with the actual white supremacists, because it does give them the moral high ground. Okay. And so if that's all we're going to do, this is where I literally said, I'm just not going to talk about race, because there's no fruitful discussion if we can't talk about the 2.5 to 2.6 differences, because it's just immediately assumed, oh, you think you're better than I am. If that's all we're going to do, then I can't. I just can't have that conversation.
It's not just that. Okay. It's not just you think you're better than I am. And I agree with everything you said. Well, let me I think we're all clear there, and I think we all agree that's probably largely the disconnect.
Common ground, common understanding.
Well, I think so. Now we need to talk about how we're actually going to phrase it, talk about racism. But let me throw this one out there, because Ryan just said, if you think that I'm accusing you of racism, that's what you just said. If you think, and the problem is you literally are accusing me of racism.
Okay. But
he's saying everybody.
A 2.6 versus a 2.5.
But that doesn't come out, right? The nuance doesn't come out when you just say it. Right?
Agreed. So I'll concede that immediately.
I'm going to request that we use numerical terms every time we say racism from now on.
Okay, where's their phone? The 10.6.
That's like a 1.7 right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. I agree.
At what
We
point
need to
on
do
the
that.
scale do I get to punch him? If it's above a 5,
Me?
can I punch him? Yeah.
Yes, you can. Because I don't think you're above a 5. And I said this in my email. I think most conservatives in the US, most conservatives, not even progressives, are below a 5 on that 10-point scale.
But do you?
I would say most Americans, right?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah,
there are clearly some.
I don't agree.
There are clearly some tens.
Do you not see why I or anybody else listening would want to punch you in the face if you said, "Oh, you're a 5"?
Okay, but I didn't say you're a 5.
Still,
I said you're below a 5. I think
said most conservatives. See, again, this is where I'm
most
getting
conservatives
back to
are
your
below
bias.
a 5. Sure.
Below
That's
a
what I
5.
said.
A 5 is insanely racist in my opinion.
No, it's not. That's middle of the scale, Josh. That's middle of the scale.
And
okay, well,
and I
by
think
definition,
and I
half
think
people
it's
are going to be
safe to
below 5.
say. So
no,
let me
it's
sum
not
up a couple.
I didn't say it's a standard distribution, right? So not the mean is not.
So, again, here's the problem. We don't. We now we have a scale and we've defined the problem kind of, but we haven't defined the scale. So now we're still going to be sensitive about being called or whatever. But maybe we need to come back to that.
More.
That's fine. Tom, you had something you wanted to say.
Okay, go ahead.
You're gonna say,
talking too much.
Ryan, that more conservatives are going to be further on. They're going to be higher. No. They're going to be rated higher, right?
Maybe on average. Maybe on average, but it's a case by case basis, right? Like you have to go case by case. Yes. I guarantee there are some conservatives who are less racist than I am.
Right.
I guarantee that's true.
Like, what was that?
Just not me.
Josh played that.
I don't know that, and you're probably less racist than I am in some ways.
Josh played that video,
and I'll concede that. I'm fine with that.
Remember the video you played, Josh, with the people when they were like, "Should we do the vote?" Was the voter laws, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
And they kept interviewing liberal people that they shouldn't change the voter laws but they were very derogatory towards blacks. Like, oh yeah, black people don't.
They don't know how to get to the voting center.
They don't
have
ID.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of racist, isn't it?
Right, and that would that there are liberals that are pretty high on that scale in a backwards sense.
Well, we would probably refer to that as benevolent racism, right?
Oh, okay.
So there's this term called benevolent sexism, which is basically when you're like, okay, I think men need to take care of women, right? So it's not like you're saying women are inferior, except indirectly. You're saying, well, women need to be taken care of, which is a benevolent form of sexism, right? That's the term that comes out of sociology. So I think the progressives in that video are doing the same thing with race, where they're basically saying, well, it's still racist. Don't get me wrong. I see it. I totally get what you're saying, but it's almost like a benevolent form of racism where it's like, well, we need to take care of them, which is still racist. Well, so I would concede that.
The direct thing, the thing that drives me crazy, liberals do this, white liberals do this, is I'm an ally. I'm a black ally. I see that as being super racist because I've yet to meet a black person that needs me as an ally. They're perfectly capable. So when they say stuff like that, I just go, that's so stupid. Black people are fully capable. Why do they need you as an ally?
Same kind of
same idea.
Benevolent.
Benevolent. But I don't want to go down that path, to be honest. Like let's stick to the main arguments today, because we're trying to wrestle with how can we have conversations about race. Okay, that is the issue. And I think at a minimum, if we can start with the idea, and we don't even have to concede this, right? Like maybe the foundation is we do say we're all racist, but
I don't like it,
and that's fine. We don't have to. What that scale was, and I was very clear when I tried to write this, right? It took me a long time to write that email. Is that scale is a racialized attitude scale. Okay, so it says nothing about whether an individual is racist. It says, let's look at this one perspective and just evaluate it from, is that really racist or is that not really racist at all? Okay, so it's specific attitudes. And then we don't have to say, Josh, I think you're a racist. I can come away from this saying, on that particular attitude, I don't love that. And I can see these ways that might be racialized. Again, does that say anything about Josh's moral worth? Is Josh a bad person because he has this slightly, higher attitude on this racialized scale versus somebody else? Maybe Tom has a less racialized attitude. Josh, if we can't say that there are differences, then there's no point in having the conversation.
Right. Josh, can Ryan call you out on and enumerate it of like, this is a minor infraction, but it's still on the racialism.
I came to this exact same conclusion. Okay. So at the end of that podcast, I threw it out to all my friends, because Ryan's friends don't ever comment, for feedback. And shout out to Kelly here. He didn't just do an echo chamber thing and say, "Oh yeah, Ryan's a flaming racist piece of crap," or what. He called me out, and he said, "Perhaps you are being." He was one of the ones that was really annoyed with what Ryan said about BYU. He took that as Ryan was being a douchebag, right? But then on the last podcast, he said, "You're probably being way too sensitive about this," and he called us both out. Okay, so I came to the same conclusion that Ryan just said. The way to approach this is not to say we're all racist, because we don't know what the term means. How to approach this is say, you know what, that thing that you just said, that might have been a little racist. Let's talk about that. That is not an attack on me. It's not an attack on my character, and it's not calling me a racist.
Right.
It's saying, well, let's talk about what you just said, because I think that might be racist.
That statement might be racist.
Yeah, I'm not going to have a problem with that. I don't know anybody that's going to have a problem with
well,
if you just
I think a lot of people still do, and
some might.
And to your credit, Josh, I'm not trying to disagree with you. I'm saying that's really hard to do because of how loaded the term racist is. So even if I say, Josh, I think what you said was a little bit racist, it's going to be really hard for you. And you could do the same to me. You could absolutely say, Ryan, I think what you said was a little bit racist, and I'm going to immediately go, fuck.
What's that word you're using, Ryan? Racialized?
Racialized.
Is that I don't even know what that
it's worse.
means.
It's worse because you're dancing around what we're trying to get to tonight. It's
why are we dancing around it? Is because you don't like the term racist.
Neither do you.
So why don't we use that?
But I don't call you a racist. No, but I don't. But you would be pissed off if I was calling you a racist.
Yes, and I concede that.
Okay.
Right? Have I called you a racist, Josh? In your perspective, you've inferred it, saying I've implied it, right? And really what I'm trying to get at.
And you admitted you have, because you're implying that I'm a 2.6, which means I'm a racist.
No.
Yes.
I've implied that particular perspective is racist. But we didn't have the distinction before this podcast between perspectives and individuals. And this is why when you asked me point blank, do you think I'm a racist? I said, no, I don't think you're a racist.
And
can
then
you hold
put me
some
on the
racist
racist continuum.
No,
but okay, we're arguing your attitude.
I put your attitude or perspective on a racist continuum.
Don't say attitude, because attitude is a direct implication that you're a racist person, because you hold that. If you have an opinion on something, a perspective, that's different.
That's fine.
So let's go through some specific scenarios that
your
happen.
Your thoughts are racist.
Well,
but you're not a racist.
Because how else can we do this, right? We can't have the conversations if every time I imply, or now Josh is saying I can just straight up say, I think what you just said might be a little bit racist.
Sure.
Josh is saying, I won't take that personally. That is not a comment on my moral self-worth as a dad, as a husband.
We actually had that same discussion like 10 years ago. We really did. Where I said, it was when we were making nice again. I said, I asked you, do you think I'm a racist? You said something along the lines of, well, I don't think you're a racist. I think some of your ideas are racist. I said, that's fine. We can talk about that. But as soon as you call somebody a racist, and this is, okay, let's bring up some specific instances from the last two podcasts. This is what set people off, and we'll figure out how we can approach them better. Okay?
Sure.
We're all good with that?
Yes, but
rather than like drudging up some past instances.
Well, they're important, I think. Because I still don't think Ryan has identified that there is a subconscious bias there.
I don't want to drag Ryan or anyone through.
I do. It's fun.
Right.
But personally, I like that I've provoked people. I mean, if I'm not provoking people, I'm not doing my job. So
yeah. If you you're
gonna get shot if
going forward. So I think the two complaints, Josh, that you had was one, the inference of like, oh, I didn't say you were racist, but I threw this out there, and only a racist would, think that was okay. That kind of inference. So you'd rather it be called out, but yet not an ad hominem like you are the racist, but like calling out maybe.
Okay. So maybe we can run through this.
It's not that I need you guys to dance around my feelings. I'm not the only one that took it like this. Everybody listening to the podcast took it exactly the same way.
But But
So
Josh,
it's not dancing around my feelings. It's how do we approach this without
right.
Ryan coming across as a douchebag?
I agree with that, but I don't think you can deny that there was outrage there, because literally multiple times you said that is outrageous.
Yeah, because
you outrage card, and I was like,
called me.
Can't have a conversation
racist.
if you're just going to pull the outrage card.
And then you danced around it. So this is why we need to go back and talk about some of these, because I don't think you see your full bias. I just don't. So just humor me for a minute.
I'm pretty sure I see them. It's just I couldn't say anything. And so what I was doing was dancing around it. I did the same thing with Tolkien, right? You guys were pissed as I danced around Tolkien, right? Because can I say Tolkien is a racist?
I have a feeling that's one of Josh's examples.
It actually is. Okay.
then let's do it.
So as at 26 minutes in that video, you're dancing
specific.
around. I thought about playing the videos just to show it, because I don't think you know. Well, let me just hit the example. You're talking about how Tolkien is racist, but you don't want to say it because you don't want to trigger me or something. Not that I don't care about Tolkien, right? And then out of nowhere, you throw in this weird thing about Tolkien only describes the races of men and not women. He doesn't talk about women. So that language is demeaning to women. And then continuing it on.
Right.
What's the point? What's the point of that statement? What's the point of just throwing that out there? Because we're not talking about that. You just throw in this misogynistic jibe. You just throw it out there. How am I supposed to take that? How are our listeners supposed to take? What's the point of that?
Okay.
Why did you throw it in there?
Did I attack you?
No, you attacked a dead man who's been dead for 100 years from the 1800s.
Well, no, he's been dead for, he's been dead since the 1970s.
Been dead for 100 years.
Regardless.
No, he's been dead since the 1970s, like 40
So
years.
he's not there. He's not there to defend himself.
Sure. So
what's the point of that? Okay. Let me just read something Bill Maher.
Do I get to answer that question, or I don't get to answer that question?
I didn't think you were going to.
Of course, I'll be happy to answer that question. We were talking about him having racialized views. Now I think we can say he had some perspectives that were racist. Are they a 10? No, I don't think anybody thinks they're a 10. He was a product of his time. We all agreed on this. We could debate where he falls on the scale, but clearly he had some racialized views. Did he have some sexist views too? Yes, he did. And that was my point, but the focus was on race. So I wasn't trying to bring it up, and I didn't attack Josh. I didn't attack Kelly. I didn't attack JR. I didn't attack anybody.
You attacked a dead man that couldn't defend himself.
You were trying
We all attacked that same dead man.
You were trying to strengthen the view that he was racist by also saying
that he was bigoted.
He has gender. See, and Josh, you're doing exactly the problem right now. You're saying that I'm saying Tolkien is a bad person. I never said Tolkien was a bad person, and this is why I wouldn't call him a racist, is because immediately it turns to outrage. How dare you call this dead guy a racist or a bigot? And I didn't. And this is exactly the problem. You're getting outraged on behalf of somebody who's dead.
I'm not outraged on his behalf. I don't.
Why are you doing this?
Unless.
What do you mean?
Why are you doing that?
What? Because we were talking about Tolkien's racist views.
We were talking about race, and you just threw in the misogyny thing. You just threw that in. Okay. From my perspective,
the argument that he's a biased individual. It's not virtue signaling. I'm anti-virtue signaling. I hate virtue signaling. I think that's garbage. I think it's stupid.
Let me read this, because I don't like Bill Maher, but he's becoming more and more disillusioned with the left. Let me read what he just wrote 2 days ago. Well, he keeps saying
I agree.
If I quote Ben Shapiro, you just laugh it off. I'm quoting Bill Maher, who you probably like.
I do like Bill Maher.
All right, so he just said, being woke is like a magic moral time machine in which you judge everyone by what you think you would have done in 1066, and you always win. Maher said, adding that presentism is just a way to congratulate yourself about being better than George Washington because you have a gay friend and he didn't. But if he were alive today, he would too. And if you were alive then, you would. Okay. So this is why I'm bringing this up. This is the way conservatives see this. So when you just throw that in there, it's like an ad hominem attack on anybody. It's virtue signaling. It's I'm better than Tolkien. That's how it's perceived. I'm not. I'm trying.
I can't do anything about how people perceive me stating facts about Tolkien.
Oh, God. Do you not?
You conceded
agree
the
with
fact.
What he just said? Do you not agree with what?
I totally agree with what he just said.
Okay, so what's
But
the
does this
point
mean
of
that
just
we can't
attacking a
talk?
dead man?
All right. I don't know what your
But-
point is here, Josh. I'm done. I don't get your
Right.
point. Your point makes no sense to me.
Because
I don't
think
get it.
because honestly, it makes sense because Ryan's saying, yes, he did, he was different back then, and therefore by adapting his stories, moves, his books to modern and adding modern, modernizing it with diversity is needed, right? Because we're now adapting it to the current future. Like, you disagree with that, but it's like, I think it just proves his point.
Well, it's not whether I agree or disagree. I just see no point in throwing these jabs at a dead guy that's not there to defend himself. And most people on the right are going to take it like that. I'm trying to explain that.
Okay, that's fine, but
I understand your argument. I understand why you added it in there. You think it's bolstering the argument you were making.
Well, because
most people aren't going to see it that way. Or at least people on the right aren't going to see that.
Keep in mind how we started the podcast, right? In that podcast, my very first point was our concern that it's too woke is based on gender and race. And both of you agreed to that. That was a yes.
Sure.
This is why people are seeing it as too woke. We focused mostly on race, but gender was a big part of that discussion. And in that particular
we're not going to
point,
find agreement on this one. Let's try another one.
But what's your point? Are you just trying to jab at me, or are you actually trying to say don't
I'm
say
trying to
these
help.
things? Then how can I make my points if I just can't say anything? It's like, oh, sorry, I can't
to you.
say.
I'm trying to point out how this is being perceived. That's how when I went back and listened to the podcast, and you're dancing about how he's racist, and then you just throw in this misogynist thing. That's what I'm trying to get to here. Okay, I didn't see any problems with it. It just felt like a cheap shot. Okay, and so when you call somebody racist, as we've established, they immediately just get defensive. If you call somebody misogynist, they immediately just get defensive. So when you're poking at a dead man, even if, because I agree with the point you're making, we all agreed. We agreed several times while you were dancing around it. Yeah, he's a product of his generation. Yeah, they were more sexist back then. Granted, but when you start taking these shots at the dead guy that's not there to defend himself, it makes you look bad. It makes you look like you're just virtue signaling. Does that make sense? I'm not poking at you. I'm trying to point out how it's perceived as we move forward. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to say.
If Ryan had said and he had back taxes that he hadn't paid, right? I'd be like, come on, Ryan, right? But I felt like the gender stuff did support. I felt like the gender stuff did.
Okay,
support
that's fine.
the argument.
Maybe I'm in the minority there. Let's try one more. This one, I got feedback on this from several people. We were talking about. I brought up the Game of Thrones show, right? Yes. How it was a direct comparison to Lord of the Rings because they featured black people prominently. They came out at the same time, similar setting. And I asked the question, what's the difference? And Ryan didn't really answer the first time. And then the second time, your only answer to the question was you looked it up and you said, well, there's only one house that's black. It's like the black people aren't predominantly featured in the show. And that's all you said about it. You never actually addressed the comparison. So as I listened to the podcast again, what's the inference? What do I take away from your argument when I say, well, what's the difference? Why do people hate Lord of the Rings? Because it has predominant black characters, but they didn't hate Game of Thrones, but it has predominant black characters. And your response was, well, there's only one house. There's only 4 black characters. The inference, obviously, to me, is if there were more black people in Game of Thrones, you racists would hate it. That's the inference. Do you see how I draw that conclusion?
Yes. Now that you say it explicitly, I do. I think my response was it's not a one-to-one comparison. It's not an apples to apples comparison.
You didn't
right?
say that. So why do you make that argument? What is your actual argument? Because you never actually said it.
You said this is a straight comparison, and I'm like, I don't think it is a straight comparison, right? Because it's I don't think it is. But now that you pointed out, right, I can see the path that somebody's mind might go down to say, oh, so because Ryan thinks we're all racist, what he's really saying is if there were more black characters in House of Dragons, we would all hate it because we're all racist, which is Not actually what I said. I said it's not an apples to apples comparison. That's it. It's not an apples to apples comparison.
Okay,
that's all.
I'm still drawing the same conclusion. Why not? Because there wasn't enough black people?
Yeah. I mean, do Arundel, right? The black elf.
You're still intimating the same thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay. I'm not implying anything other than it's not an apples to apples comparison. The inference is happening on the other side. Do you see what I'm saying? Because literally that's the full extent of my argument is it's not apples to apples. Yeah. If we could go through and say the exact same number
comparison.
Yes, that's it. That's all. That was the full extent of my argument. Now that you pointed out, I see how the path would go for somebody to go, oh, he's still calling me a racist, but I didn't try to do that.
I get that's very interesting because I get what Josh is saying, because by just saying there was only one house, it does imply, like if there was more, I do see it.
I see it now,
and I get it. So that's interesting. Okay.
Some of the feedback. So TJ actually gave me this feedback. He's actually watched it, and he said they're only other house that can ride dragons. They're incredibly important. They're the richest house. They're featured prominently, so they're a huge part of the show. So by you saying that is the obvious conclusion to draw by anybody that's watched both.
I haven't watched both.
Neither
have I watched it, right? So I don't know.
If Game of Thrones had more black people, then you racists wouldn't like it. Okay, so what are you actually saying there? What if it were?
Did you see what I was saying?
I do.
Okay, that's all I said.
You didn't even.
I wasn't trying to say. I wasn't trying to say. You
never even addressed it. Literally, all you said when I brought up the question twice. Literally, all you said was, "Well, there's only like 4 people. It's one house." That was literally all you said about it.
Okay.
So the obvious conclusion,
it's not an apples to apples comparison. But the obvious conclusion for certain people,
if Game of Thrones had the same number of black people, would we hate it?
I don't know that. I don't know.
Okay, so this is part of the problem with that whole podcast.
Right. Well, it's hard, right? Josh, you're trying to use that because it's a very valid. It's the closest thing we're going to get to a comparison. Yeah. And you're trying to say, look, people like this, then it's not a diverse, it's not a racist thing. It's because there's diversity in both. But so that I get it. And Ryan, as a true scientist, is just saying, well, it's not 100% apples to apples, therefore I can invalidate it.
So let's try another one that TJ brought this up. He asked me, did you have a problem with Idris Elba, forget his character's name in Thor, Heimdall? Did you have a problem with Idris Elba being Heimdall?
Did I, or he asked you?
He asked me.
Oh, he's the gatekeeper.
Yes, the gatekeeper
opens the Rainbow Bridge thing. Yeah.
And it took me a full 5 seconds to even think about why that would be a problem. And then it's a Norse pantheon. They should all be pasty white guys, right? According to the pantheon.
I'm just now realizing that, but you're right. That's an interesting point. Okay.
And I've obviously had no problem with it. Idris Elba, for my money, I think he's the best actor currently doing it. I think he's amazing.
Not all of his movies are amazing, but I thought he was great in all of the Thor movies, right?
Yeah.
As Heimdall, I thought he was marvelous. He was great.
I haven't seen Cats, and I refuse to see Cats because I think it'll totally ruin my take on Idris Elba.
I
think he's great.
Yes, he was, but no one saw Cats. Like no one's gonna watch Cats.
Nobody did.
The only version of Cats I'd watch is one where they didn't edit out the buttholes. Have you heard about this? There was an episode, the very first cut, they actually CG'd buttholes for all the cats, and then they decided to take it out.
They're like,
that's so weird.
That's the episode. Nasty. That's the version I would watch. No, there was another one I watched of him recently where I was like, he was actually not that good in it, but I do love him as an actor. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was.
I think it's fair to say, I think there was zero controversy about that. Right?
Yeah, none. And my thought is, because there was nothing because obviously the source material would be that he's supposed to be white. That's the pantheon. But I never saw like a cartoon as a kid where there was this cool Heimdall character and he was white. Okay, maybe if there was supposed to be some continuity, I'd have a problem with it. Then
it wasn't a big key.
Nobody cared in the story. Nobody cared. Literally nobody said a word about it. And then he said, "Did you have a problem with Samuel L. Jackson being Nick Fury?" And I had to think about that one. And because Nick Fury in the comics is a white guy with a patch, right? I never read the
I haven't read the comics. I haven't read the comics.
I hadn't read the comics either, so it never even occurred to me.
Right.
So I'm not seeing race here. So Ryan's argument in the previous podcast was that if you notice the color of these people's skin, he drew this causal chain, you're therefore ipso facto racist because you noticed race, which it's not. That is largely what you said, right? And
can we clarify this point?
Add as much nuance as you want, because that's why I'm even bringing it up.
Okay.
But you see the point I'm making. I didn't care that Sam L was Nick Fury because I had no connection to
he was a great Nick Fury.
Yeah, there was no continuity issues.
Well, it would be that you didn't read the comics and you didn't really attach yourself to that.
Some people may have had big issues with Nick Fury being black in the movies. Right. I didn't. So are they racist for that? That's what I'm trying to get at here.
Okay,
and just that. Okay, stop.
Interesting.
Where Ryan just went.
No.
Do that, no, just let me explain. When you do that, that's like I take that going. Well, no, I take it as going. Yeah, maybe they are racist.
But
that's
what I was saying,
ground,
Josh.
bro. That's super dangerous ground.
I know. What I was saying is maybe that particular attitude or that perspective on our racialized continuum would be a little bit higher. Does that mean that they want to lynch black people? No, I'm not saying that. But do you see what I'm saying? That's where people immediately go that it's like, oh, I think that person who has an issue with Nick Fury being black is a member of the KKK.
But what you just said is an attack, because I mean, you just threw me there. I'm asking if that's racist, and you didn't approach that right just now. You could have said, well, that might be kind of a racist way to look at that.
Isn't that what I just said?
Right. Josh is saying when you did this.
Right, because that's what I meant. Maybe on the scale, that actually is a little bit racist. That doesn't mean when I do this, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that they want to lynch black people. Yes, right. I'm not saying that. And I think that's where you immediately take that as me doing that. No, and I'm not.
No. You're still saying they're racist. And anytime you say somebody's racist, they're going to be pissed. Anybody on the right, anybody on the left. And that is essentially what you just said.
That is what he's saying. And I don't think it's a big, but he's trying to have the conversation, right? That's, and he's not saying they're full blown. He's saying there is racism there.
And it's if you just go to outrage and say that is outrageous that you would do that, then we can't even have the conversation. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't have a conversation about whether their perspective might be a little bit more racist than somebody else's perspective.
Fine, but when you do that, it just immediately goes, that's racist. He's racist.
I don't know that person. We're talking about a hypothetical person, and I'm saying it's possible. Because literally, what is this? What is this motion? It's possible. It's not absolutely. I didn't do that. I was like, possible.
Hey, you keep defending yourself to me, like I just need to adapt to you. Everyone listening triggered to what you're doing. Everybody.
Okay. Most of them can't see what I'm doing because they're listening.
It doesn't matter. They all triggered to what you're doing. Everybody did. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not attacking you here. I'm trying. I don't even know what I'm trying to do. We need to figure out how you're going to present yourself, because I'm still when we bring something up and go, maybe he's a racist. Yeah, that pisses me off, because I don't think that's a smart way to approach it. Because as soon as you if you label, and I understand the spectrum, I get it. I understand that we're on that scale, but as soon as you label them, he's maybe he's a racist.
Do keep in mind, I haven't said that.
Maybe we need to. For a little bit, we need to call it out, right? Of like, this is a little bit on the scale. This is a little bit racist, right? I don't know. Just so for a little while we kind of introduce this thing, because I get everything, Josh, you've been saying, because that's why racism, the racist card is such.
Yep.
It's so inflammatory, right? Because it's like it throws in everything, right? It's got the baby and the bathwater and everything implied with it. And but I agree with Ryan of like, if you can't even talk about it, then how can you even?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. And so it's like when he says, that is a little racist, then it's like we got to find a way that you can be like, when I say it's just a little, meaning it's just like this. It's over here.
Yeah.
Even if you say that,
I'm thinking, all I've been thinking the whole time is like, if you swap out my beloved character when I was a kid in a reboot, or I'm trying to think of an example. I can't think of an example.
If you made He-Man black.
Yes, exactly. If you made He-Man black, would I be mad? Would I be
they
mad?
just did this with Ariel from Little Mermaid.
Yeah, okay,
black.
that's a great example. I mean, like, I'm not a big Ariel fan, but
yeah, me neither.
Come on, Tom, you're totally an Ariel fan.
Well,
yeah, but to your point, Josh, I've already seen the articles that said racist backlash, right?
Yeah.
There was racist backlash from people changing it. And that's the thing, is that racism, right? That you're mad that they changed the race. And that's what it's interesting is, like, I didn't even think or blink an eye that Idris Elba?
Idris Elba was Heimdall.
Was Heimdall. That he was black in the show, and I that didn't even like faze me. And so but of course, to your point, he wasn't a character. He was kind of a side character. He didn't play a huge role.
There's no continuity issues. Nobody knew the character.
Cartoons, or
maybe the true comic book, fans who have followed the comic books, maybe they saw this and said, that it's a continuity issue. Maybe that's all it was for them.
So is that racist? Issue? Because that's the problem.
But if it's just a continuity issue, that it's literally like, I wonder why they did that, right? That's fine. And I said this last time. If it literally was just a continuity issue for Josh, then so be it. That's fine. Okay. But can it also be something else? Could it also be racist?
Sure. Okay. And I agree to that.
Then we agree.
But it's this weird pushback. If you go back and listen to the episode, you're challenging me on it. I said for an hour, it's just a continuity thing. It ruined the show because they spent too much time on this. And I agreed with Tom's take, is they're pushing an agenda and it's preachy. And I said this for an hour, and at the end, you're like, is that really all it is? You had to challenge me on it. And you did the same.
I said it just like that, but so be it.
You did the same thing on the BYU one. Okay. This is where I really got pissed, is we were talking about the improbability of this happening at the BYU match. Right. And I said, there's no way that there's nobody there that wouldn't have said something. And you said, really? Not if she's surrounded by racists. And I had a big problem with that. And then you said, well, would you have done something? Would you have confirmed them? And I said, yes, of course I would. And you said, your exact words were, would you really? Would you really? And then I gave you that example of me confronting somebody.
Yeah. And that example was a great example, Josh. I liked it.
Okay,
I think about it all the time, that I'm like, wow, my brother is confronting people when they drop the N-bomb.
Sure. And I've done it several times. So
that's great.
Here's the problem with you, because you did it both episodes, and this is one of the things that pissed me off, right? Is you questioned as if whether or not I would do it. Like you challenged me. You challenged how racist I am. And all I could think about this last week is, in the 41 years, and this is what Kelly warned me about, we have 41 years of baggage that we're trying to deal with here. That's why it's hard for you and I to do this. But it's hard for everybody to do this.
Yes.
In 41 years, have I ever done anything that would make you think that I wouldn't stand up for a woman that's being called the N-word?
Nope.
So why on earth would you challenge? That's what I don't get. Why would you challenge me? So this is why I led with the whole, I think this is a bias in your brain, and maybe I'm dead wrong. Why would you keep challenging me on this? I've never done anything that would intimate that I wouldn't stand up for that, or that I wouldn't stand up for the right thing, whether it's racist or whatever. Why do you keep challenging me on it? Do you see what I'm saying? That's why there's an inference of you calling me a racist. And that's why I think it goes back to your liberal framework, because it's not you. You and I have never had an issue where like you saw me doing anything racist, or I saw you doing anything racist, but you keep challenging me. Would you actually stand up for that?
Okay.
Well, hell yes,
and
I would.
Think that's right. And I'm agreeing with you, right? I probably shouldn't be challenging you. At the same time, we're having conversations about race, really about people. Like, we were not in that auditorium. We were not in the auditorium. We were not there to hear what was happening. We don't know if she heard it, if she didn't hear it. We don't know any of the actual details. Like, can we just concede that, like, we don't actually know what happened? We don't know. Okay.
Well, we have the transcripts and the videos. Okay, I wasn't there. I'll concede that.
we weren't there. We don't know what she heard. And you already agreed to this, right? You don't know what she heard. So we're debating whether there could have been racist stuff that happened. And really, the debate is about that. It's about that.
Could it have happened, or was it likely? Was there? I think we were debating two different things. You were debating true. Could it have happened?
Yes.
And I was debating what's the likelihood.
And I conceded in the next episode that it was not likely. Right.
But you
just
instinctively dug your heels in.
Yes, because you did say, Josh, it didn't happen. And I was like, you can't know that. You can't know that.
I have a thought I wanted to share.
Tom.
This is interesting. Did you guys see the video of the people saying F the Mormons at the Oregon University game?
I did, but I saw on Twitter that it happened. Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same situation. Woman's filming it. What I thought was and Oregon University made a statement saying, hey, this isn't us and doesn't represent us. What was interesting, what I thought was there were just people walking up the stands and they're
not
just
doing anything.
Not doing anything. And it supports sort of, Ryan, your idea that like people are just like, oh, well, they're dropping the F-bomb.
Who stands up for Mormons? That's...
Yeah, I mean, but
nobody goes to bat for Mormons.
It's bigotry, right?
It is bigotry.
Sure, absolutely.
That's I was surprised to see these men, and they're just like, doo-doo-doo, and these young guys are like, F the Mormons, and they're like, and these guys are walking up the stands and don't say a thing, and dads or whatever. I would have been like, or at least I think I would have been like, hey, if you're saying what I think you're saying, please stop it. It's
you're probably getting in a fight.
I think that's the concern, because it was a bunch of people doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of people do it. And again, I'm not trying to put you or Tom on the spot here, right? But let's say that they were saying the same thing about like United Methodists, right? So you hear them saying it, and you're going off to get a hot dog or something at the game. Are you going to go out of your way to be like, really, guys? Like, and then they're gonna throw a beer at you. Yeah, like I don't know, and I don't even know what I would do. Yeah. I don't know how I would respond if it was, F the United Methodists, which I have dear friends who are United Methodists, and I have nothing against the United Methodists. Like this is not me trying to trash them. I just don't know that would, like Tom said, that would be the hill that I would die on, where I'm like, whoa,
no,
I'm going to get punched in the face for this.
I don't care what religion it is. I wouldn't do anything about it because I don't actually care. Like, it's not like they were actually hurting anybody. Whereas the case with the alleged racial slur for this girl, in my mind, that's different. You're actually hurting this person, or could be causing her some distress. With the other one, I mean, it's in bad taste, but yeah, chant whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, to the point, at the BYU game, if this was really being said, it was directed at a specific individual, and I think the N word is much worse. I hear the F word every day, all over the place, right?
I've dropped it twice in this episode. So.
Have you? Great. I haven't even heard it. That's how desensitized I am now. Yep. And so like, yeah, but the N word, I feel is like it's in a league of its own in a sense. So maybe it's like Ryan said, they are apples and oranges, and that's not a comparable statement. But I was surprised. that people just walking around as these people were chanting these.
I wouldn't have done anything in that situation.
Maybe I wouldn't have either. Maybe I would have been like, oh, that sucks.
Maybe I'm just desensitized. I told you earlier, I've been spit on for being a Mormon. I've had rocks thrown at me. Like, it's just gonna happen. People chanting that at a football game, that's nothing to me.
If it was one person saying it, I probably would, and they weren't like this huge beefy dude who was completely inebriated, I would probably say something. If it's a whole group of guys who are all drunk, what good is it going to actually do?
You're going to get punched.
You're going to get punched, right? You're going to get beer thrown on you. You're going to get punched. And,
right.
And
that doesn't make it right. Thing to do is to pull out your phone and film it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably right. Yeah.
You probably get a lot of them fired in this day and age. It's pretty weird world we live in.
Have we made some progress?
I think we have. Can we
sum it up?
Let's try to restate the disconnect, because I think this is super helpful and this is part of the problem. So you guys restate it.
So I think so I mean, like with us getting this kind of out in the open, that we are okay. I mean, we should call out racism when there's racism, and it's probably more harm to infer than to actually just call it out, right? Then or just be like, oh, I don't know, but to be like, no, that seems kind of racist or whatever. But with that said, maybe we go to greater means to say, this is a minor infraction, but it is racism, right? Or we just kind of clarify that, or at least for a little while we kind of get used to like that there is a spectrum there, as Ryan has been saying, that there's a spectrum of racism, and that we all are on it.
Yeah, and I think the key caveat there is that when it's called out, it's not calling somebody
Yeah.
a racist. It's calling out a particular perspective or belief in that particular whatever that is, that particular perspective might be somewhat racist. And it's only if we can frame it that way that I think we have a chance. I don't know if we can do it, that we have a chance of being able to have a conversation without it making it personal, right? Because as soon as you call somebody a racist, and again, I conceded this beginning, I think leftists, people on the left do this all the time. It's playing into a really stupid identity politics game, right? That the right is always going to win because, to Josh's point, right? And I said this earlier, I think the vast majority of people in the US are below a 5 on almost all their attitudes when it comes to race, right? If we're using that scale. There are some people who are at 10s, but I think the most are at 5. So we're really debating in this small area of like, how racist are people on the bottom end of the scale, right? So that's all the area that I think most of us are ever debating, but we have to divorce that from somebody's self-worth as a husband, as a father, as a human being, because
I don't like that.
Problematic. What do you mean?
I still don't like that because I can still think I'm a good father, but if you call me a racist, that's still fighting words, okay? Because that's how I was raised. That's how you were raised, right? Does that make sense? So if you just
Explain.
say,
yeah, why can't you be a racist and be a loving father to your beautiful white ginger children?
I can. I absolutely can. I just don't see myself as a racist, okay? And that's not to say that I'm not on the scale. I don't see myself as a racist. That is not part of my identity.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So when somebody says, well, you're a racist, even if you're just saying I'm a 1 on the scale, that's still fighting words for a lot of people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, but we can't say you're a racist. We have to say that thing you just said sounded kind of racist. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. We're in agreement there. So when you frame it like that, when you framed it earlier in your email where you said you're a good dad and you write books and all that, but you're a racist. They're not. But
I didn't say that. I actually said your attitudes.
No,
right. Yes.
Okay, but I'm saying when you approach it like that, it doesn't work because the David Duke's probably a great dad, right?
Maybe I don't know. Yeah, probably. Let's say
you see the point I'm making. They don't go hand in hand. So why even say that? As soon as you say you're a racist, it doesn't matter what you're referring to on the scale. Them's fighting words. So you have we have to talk. We have to say that view.
What you just said, or this perspective, because is racist.
Because I'm actually okay with that. I'm okay with being like, hey, what you said is racist, and that's that. Like
what he said.
This is what I always say. We all have a little racism in us, and I would think that if we're ever going to get better, it should be like you self-reflect and be like, hey, because that's what I was doing just now. Like if they change He-Man to black, would I have a problem with that? And would that bother me? And I should. Right. If we're trying to make progress as a country, shouldn't I be thinking about that and being like, well, would I have a problem with that? And would I have a problem with that because there's some racism there? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's okay to be called out on. As long as you're like, that's a level 1 infraction. I'll be like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. This is a misdemeanor.
So my takeaway, my buddy Kelly calling me out, right? So my takeaway for liberals,
liberals or progressives, which one are we really talking about here?
Either and or, I don't care. Okay. You can put the label on it. Let's be very careful about calling people racist. As Ryan said, I agree with 100% with what Ryan said. there is this this thing that's been happening where you just say everybody's a racist, and you try to claim moral high ground and virtue signal, and it's just so not helpful. With conservatives, I think it's important for us to identify that the proper place of the left is to champion the dispossessed and the minorities. So if they're the ones that are going to be calling out racism, they're not doing it properly, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But if they're the ones that are going to be calling out racism, it probably behooves us to listen and go, okay, what I just said or my thought here, is it racist? That's probably smart for us on the right to step back and disassociate with what's happening and assess ourselves and say, well, maybe I can do better in this area. But it's going to be really hard when somebody's just like, you racist son of a gun, you hate this movie because there's black people in it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think we both have stuff we can do better. And when I say both, I mean the right and the left, not just Ryan and I.
Well said.
Yeah. I
Ryan?
think I agree with all of that.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
I would probably even go further, right? If somebody called me a racist, even though I'm on the left, it would be really hard not to pull the outrage card. That said, let me give you an actual example. I can't use the student's name, right? So this was a couple of years ago, teaching one of my classes.
Use the student's name.
No. No. One, they're probably not listening to the podcast, but two, I just can't for FERPA reasons, right? So legal reasons. But after the class ended, so after the semester was over, the student, I think quite hesitantly, sent me an email saying, we did have a class. It was an intro to sociology class. So like one topic we discussed was race. And there were several times when we were talking about race that instead of calling people of color black people, right, I actually said blacks. Okay. And this, hold on. Okay. I know that a lot of people don't understand this, right? But this gets to this people first language that people are not their color, they're people, right? They just happen to have, colored skin or whatever it is. And we do this with lots of different things, right? Mm-hmm. So increasingly we want people first language. And so I did in fact use the term blacks several times, and she just called me out on it, right? She's like, she happens to be a person of color, right? So she said it made me uncomfortable the 3 or 4 times that you actually said blacks instead of black people. And I could have gotten outraged. I could have been pissed off about this. But what I did is I said, damn it, she's right. That's fine, right? If this is going to make her uncomfortable, I can make that concession and just refer to people as, people of color as black people instead of calling them blacks. And so I wrote her back a very polite email and said, thank you for pointing that out to me. I will try to do better. Okay. So all of that is to say, and this is not me trying to claim a moral high ground. It's trying to say my initial response was, do I really have to do this? Right? Like, come on, it's two words now instead of one word, right? It seems really petty, but I get the logic behind it. And it's hard to do that. It's when somebody calls us out, it's really hard not to take it personally. And I don't think she meant it personally. It was really, she was trying to help me be better. I think we can do that, right? I think we can, but it's hard to do.
I mean, this is a whole different subject, a different podcast, but who gets to be the arbiter of what better actually is, right? Okay, I shouldn't have said anything just now because what you just said was good. I'm sorry.
Tuning in, everybody. We've left it on a good note here.
Well, we did until I opened my mouth again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Cool. Well, this is good. Good podcast about how to talk about race and racism and making progress in that manner. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we appreciate everyone's point of view. And Josh wants to say something.
I'm sorry, I dominated the podcast, but let me just throw it out there to everybody again. Let us know if you think we got to the disconnect. I'm really interested in you guys that threw in the feedback. Shout outs to Jake, Hunter, Corbin, JR, Kelly, TJ. The feedback was really helpful for me to try to wrap my mind around this. So send us your feedback again. I didn't get to all of it. I had a whole list here. I was going to get to all your stuff, but I'm really interested if you guys think we got to the disconnect, because I see this as one of the major disconnects in the country, where we just can't talk about this and everybody just hates each other, right? So let us know. And apologies we went 2 hours. Tom, wrap it up again. Sorry.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.